Alison Solven from Stamp Crazy, and today I'm really excited to show you some new products that are coming out in the 2014-2015 Stampin' Up! Catalog that launches on June the 2nd, and they are called Blendabilities. These are so fun. I'm absolutely addicted. They are alcohol-based markers, and they are fabulous. And the thing I like the most about them is that they come in a package of 3. And you can see this one, for instance, is called Cherry Cobbler Assortment. And it's already lined up for you in the light, medium, and dark version of the same color. So you do not have to buy a color here, buy a color there, figure out whether it matches and it's light and it goes with the dark and the medium. It's all done for you. And as a demonstrator, during May, we are allowed to purchase these as on what's called a pre-order, so we get to play with them ahead of everybody else. Another great reason to be a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. So let me show you a little bit about them and the features. They are alcohol-based, like I mentioned. They have 2 tips. They have a brush end and a pointy end, a nib end, and you can tell which one it is by the large bar or the skinny bar. One thing I did notice when I got mine is that when you take the lid off and you got to put it back on, you don't want to just kind of shove it in there. If you lay it down and line up the ends and then just snap it, that's the best way to do it, because there is a little recessed part inside the cap where the nib sits in. So you just want to make sure that you don't kind of squish it. Other than that, let's get started and let me show you some things. The first thing you need to know is that you can only use Memento ink with these types of markers. If you try and use StazOn, because StazOn is an alcohol-based ink or a solvent ink, the alcohol just kind of makes it spread and look ugly and blurry and smudges, basically. So you want to use Memento ink, which I have now discovered is my new best friend, and I will use it for everything that I want to do in black. In terms of stamping, except watercoloring, because if you try to add water to this, it will run. So let me show you a stamp that we're going to use. This is from a new stamp set, a new hostess set that's coming in the new catalog, and it's called Bloom with Hope, and it's so pretty. So I'm going to ink up my stamp, and I'm going to stamp it twice, just so I can show you a couple of color combinations. So here's my 2 stamped daisies, and I've got my Blendabilities here. And what I like about this particular stamp, if you're learning how to use these kinds of inks, because they're a bit different, is that it's a small image and it's got a lot of detail. So there's lots of things that you can highlight easily without having to think too much about where the light's coming from and all that kind of stuff. Whether you start with the lightest color or the darkest color in the combination that they come in is entirely up to you. I've started with the dark one, and that's just kind of how I'm teaching myself. So this set here is the Daffodil Delight, and you can see a hope on the side. There's dark, medium, and light. So it says it right on here for you, which is really awesome. So I'm going to start with my dark one. I'm going to use the nib end, and I'm just going to go around the outside of this little center of the flower. And I'm just kind of squish, 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 squish. Don't you love the sound that those markers make? Isn't that cool? Squish, squish, squish. The center I'm going to leave right now because I want to use a different color on that. The next thing I want to do, remember what I said, line it up and push, is bring in the medium version of it. This time I'm going to add my next color, and what you're doing is it sort of goes against what you're used to. You're used to not going over the other color because you're used to using water-based markers. But these want you to go over the other color and blend it so you don't have a line. So I'm going to start right on top of the darker version, and I'm just going to blend out like so. So I want to go right over, because what happens is it retains its color. It doesn't cover up the darker color at all, which takes a little bit of getting used to. It just blends it so you don't see a line. And when it dries, it actually starts to look a little bit different too. So don't give up before it dries. And the next thing I want to do actually is add some, go back to my dark one, and I just want to add some dark color here just to give it a little bit more dimension on the sides. Just like so. Okay, and then again I can go in with my medium one, and I'm just beside it, I'm just going to blend that just so that it blends out some of those lines. It's a very small area, so that's why I'm using the nib end. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to bring in the lightest marker, and I can use the nib end again, but I'm going to use the brush end just because it gives me a little bit more ability to blend. And this is the lightest color. And see, I'm going over the entire thing. And here, I don't think you can see, but I can see there's a line here, a definite line between the light and the dark. I don't want that. So I'm just going to color until that line disappears. That's really all there is to it. Okay, so you can see I'm going right over. I'm going back over the dark one and the light one, and I'm just blending, blending, blending. And what I found really great when I was learning to do this, because I've never done this before, so I wanted to show you how easy it is. Starting with a small image is a lot easier. It's a lot less intimidating, and I just found it something that I could do and feel successful at. So my little center there of my little daisy, I'm going to use, this is the skin tone assortment, but in here are two darker colors. One is called bronze and the other is called mocha. I'm going to use the mocha one, and I'm just going to see these little dark areas here. I'm just going to color those on that side like that, and then I'm going to go in with the lighter one, and just like I did before, I'm going to go back over the dark. And I'm blending this color out. I'm bringing it out. And once that dries, there will be a difference in those two colors, but just give it a little bit more pop. You could also kind of just add a little bit of, spread it out a little bit, just to, like that. And no harm in coming back in with your light of your daffodil and going back over to just blend those. And you can see, isn't that awesome? It's really just getting your mind kind of re-educated. So that's my attempt at doing a little daisy with a very simple technique using the Blendabilities. I'll bring in something that I did earlier. So here it is again, and this is a different color combination, which I also really loved. Really, really cool. And then when you get a little bit more confident, you can go on to another size image. This one is also from that very same set, Bloom with Hope, that I was talking about. It's a hostess set, so look for that when the new catalog comes out on June the 2nd, because I know you'll want to get it. It's beautiful. And then lastly, I've got this one here. This was a little bit more challenging for me, only because I'd never done this before, but I think I did a pretty good job. And one of the things I wanted to point out to you was, if you can see this area here where it's lighter on the edges, I used the color lifter. This is not an eraser per se, but it does lift the color. So I just went, this was quite dark, and I just went over my color lifter. And if I just do this little bit here, hopefully you can see it. I'm just going to color in here, and you can see that it just starts to lift the color off and just gives it a little bit of highlight. Do this little bit here too, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So isn't that cool? So I'm having a lot of fun doing projects using the Blendabilities, and I know I'll be doing more videos and showing you more fun things, but I wanted to just give you a preview. So thanks so much for joining me today, and happy stamping!
If you wanna play, make it about a place. It'll take creation, imagination Try to draw out